Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shiur.
Shalom Bracha and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Brachos Daf Samach Gimel. We're 7 lines from the top, says the Gemara. Kol choismei brachos sheba migdash. So how would they conclude their brachos in the Beis Hamikdash? Rashi explains they would conclude it with a lengthy chasima, a lengthy conclusion. For instance, Rashi says instead of merely saying Baruch Ata Hashem Choinin Hadas, they would say Baruch Ata Hashem Elokei Yisrael Min Ha'olam Ad Ha'olam Baruch Choinin Hadas. Says, well, why was this necessary? Why did they need to prolong their chasima in this manner? Kol Kach Lama. The answer is Lefi She'ein Oinin Amen B'Mikdash, because in the Beis Hamikdash they do not acknowledge with Amen. Ordinarily, a Amen is said to acknowledge a bracha. In the Beis Hamikdash, the conduct was different. Instead of saying Amen, they would say Baruch Shem, Kavod Malchus D'Olam Va'ed, blesses the name of the glory, the honor of Hashem's kingdom forever. This was appropriate for the Beis Hamikdash because the Beis Hamikdash was indeed the abode of Hashem's Shechina, the resting place, the display of Hashem's kingdom, Hashem's kingship in this world. And therefore, Baruch Shem, Kavod Malchus, bless the name of his kingdom. That is the appropriate reference to the name of Hashem in the Beis Hamikdash, appropriate acknowledgement for a bracha in the Beis Hamikdash. Says the Gemara, since they needed to respond with Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus instead of merely saying Amen, therefore the bracha needed to have a chasima which paralleled this acknowledgement, this response of Baruch Shem, and therefore they had to say Baruch Ata Hashem Elokei Yisrael Min Ha'olam Va'ad Ha'olam, to express Hashem's kingship, Malchus, in this world, in the next world. It says more again, Kol Kach Lama, why was this necessary? Because Amen was not recited in the Beis Hamikdash in response to the bracha, and therefore the chasima of the bracha needed to be prolonged to parallel Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Ha'olam Va'ed. How do you know, indeed, that Amen is not used as an acknowledgement in the Beis Hamikdash? Shenemar Kumu Baruch Hashem Lekeichem, get up and bless Hashem. Min ha'olam va'ad ha'olam v'omer v'yivarach Hashem kvodecha u'meroimam al brachos sehila. So we see that the response is meant to be v'yivarach Hashem kvodecha, which is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus, and therefore, in turn, the conclusion, the chasim of the bracha needed to be Baruch Hashem Ata Hashem Elokei Yisrael Min ha'olam va'ad ha'olam, in order to parallel the acknowledgement of Baruch Shem which came immediately afterwards. Says the Gemara, Yachil, I would think perhaps Kol ha'brachos kulan tehila and tehila achas, that all brachos require merely one praise, meaning that after the full series of brachos, for instance after the complete Shemona Esrei, then and only then is Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus recited, but not as a response to every individual bracha. Says Gemara, no, Talmud Leiman, the pasuk teaches that Merayim Hashem is greater and more elevated than Al Kol Brachos Tehila. He is Merayim Al Kol Brachos Tehila. So we learn from here, Al Kol Bracha. On every bracha that is said, Tein Lei Sehila, give him a praise. So we're meant to say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus in response to every single individual bracha in the Beis Hamikdash. Continues the Gemara, Hiskinu, they established a custom that one would greet his colleague using Hashem's name in the greeting. And we see that from the story of Boaz. The Mishnah brings the pasuk where Boaz came from Beis Lechem and he told the Kaitzim, the harvesters, Hashem imachem, Hashem is with you. So we see that he invoked the name of Hashem within his greeting. And the pasuk continues and says, Va'omer, another pasuk, to prove as a basis for this conduct, which is the pasuk where the Malach greeted Gideon and he said, Hashem imcha gibar achayil. So why do we need two proofs for the same concept? Why do we need the second pasuk? Why is the first pasuk describing Boaz using the name of Hashem? Why is that not sufficient? Perhaps you would suggest Boaz midai to the nafshe kamar. Boaz, from his own will, he did so. He didn't have a source for his minhag. Tashma, come and hear. We have a source indeed. Hashem imcha gibar achayil. The Malach used the name of Hashem when he greeted Gideon. So we have a source from the Malach. That this indeed is the appropriate mode of behavior. Why does the Mishnah continue bringing another pasuk? The pasuk of Al Tovais Ki Zakni Yimecha. Says the Gemara, perhaps one could challenge and say, the Malach was merely conveying a message from Hashem to Gideon. Don't have fear, don't worry from the Goyim, from the Midyanim. Don't be afraid. Hashem imcha gibarach. Hashem is with you, you strong warrior. So this was a unique thing. This was a message that he was passing on from Hashem, but it's not something which ordinarily is applied to every greeting. So we have another pasuk that highlights, that teaches us that even within the ordinary greeting, the Shem Hashem is meant to be mentioned. Tashma, come and hear another raya, another pasuk. Al tavais ki zakna yimecha. Don't belittle, don't degrade, don't be mevaza. Ki zakna yimecha, referring to the ziknei ha'umais, the elders of your nation. Meaning, take heed, learn from Boaz's example, learn from his conduct. And just as he used the Shem Hashem in the greeting, don't degrade it, don't negate it. Learn from it, observe from his ways, and follow his custom. V'omer, and the pasuk continues, the Mishnah continues with another pasuk, Eis lasis l'Hashem hefer sesecha. This explains indeed why Boaz would use Hashem's name within a greeting. Because of this very pasuk, Eis lasis l'Hashem. It is a time to do for Hashem's sake. Hashem wants us to greet one another. It says, Baki shalom v'retfeyu. Seek peace, pursue peace. Therefore, greeting one another is the will of Hashem. It is Eis lasis Hashem. Therefore, one will even do it in a manner which appears perhaps like a feris or a secha. You're annulling Hashem's Torah. You're going against Hashem's word by using Hashem's name within this greeting. No, it is Eis lasis Hashem. You're doing for Hashem's sake. And this indeed is also the will of Hashem. So this was the source, the basis for the behavior, the conduct of Boaz. And therefore one is meant to follow accordingly. Amarov. This pasuk of Eis lasis Hashem hefer sesecha has a double meaning. Haikra meireshe l'sefer midrash. One can expound on it, kedarshan, going from the beginning to the end, from top to bottom. Meisefa l'reishe midrash. It could also be expounded and darshan going backwards from bottom up, as the Gemara will explain. Meireshe l'sefer midrash. You can darshan going from the beginning to the end, as follows. The pasuk says, Eis lasis Hashem. It is a time to do for Hashem. My time. What is the reason that Hashem gives out retribution? He hands out punishments for those that go against the Torah and transgress the Torah. My time. Why? Because they annul the Torah. And that's why they incur the retribution of Hashem. That's one way of explaining the pasuk. Eis lasis Hashem. Hashem does it because, on account, as a result of those that are heferus harasecha. We can also make a reverse drasha. Me'sefer l'reisha midrash. We begin from the end. Heferus harasecha. Sometimes we do things that appear to be annulling the Torah, negating the Torah. Rashi explains, for instance, Eliyahu, when he was makrib the korban on the Mount Carmel, on the Har Carmel, on a mizbeach, which seems to be something which is an isser. We're not meant to be makrib a korban on a bama outside the mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash. Nevertheless, he did it for the sake of Hashem, in order to clarify to Klal Yisrael the existence and the power of Hashem, and to negate, to challenge the Avodah Zarah. So he did something which appeared to be annulling the words of the Torah, going against the mitzvahs. But that was a Hayrah Shah, that was a special phenomenon, a special circumstance, where he indeed was allowed to do that. My time of Hashem, Eis lasis Hashem, because he was doing it for Hashem's sake. So we can darshan the pasuk in both ways. Tanya, says the Gemara, Hillel Zaken Omer, b'sha'as hamachnisen pazer. When you see that the Chachmei Hadar, the Torah scholars in the Dar generation, are not distributing the Torah, they're not teaching Torah to the masses, to the Talmidim, then you go ahead, pazer, you distribute it. B'sha'as hamafazrim, but if you see that others are doing that already, they're teaching, they're distributing Torah, they're spreading the word of Hashem, and there's no need for your services, kanes, then you withhold, gather within yourself. Don't take upon yourself the mantle, the honor, the kavod of being a teacher, And take, Rashi says, lechois b'minas hanava. Hold on to the attribute of anava, of humility, since you're not needed. So withhold, gather within yourself your Torah, and be humble. So here it's also a situation where it looks like heiferis eresecha. You're annulling the Torah, you're not teaching the Torah, you're not spreading the word of Torah, but it's eis las Hashem, it's for the sake of Hashem, it's for kavod shamayim, to be humble, and to be an anav, since it's not necessary, you're not needed, there are others that are doing the job, therefore withhold for the sake of Hashem. Continues the Gemara, if you see the generation, you see that the generation has an endearment for Torah. Pazer, go and teach Torah, spread it out. There are those that spread and they earn a reward. Hashem adds to their scholarship. Hashem adds to their knowledge. It's not something that you can incur loss from. It doesn't result in hefset. When you teach Torah, you're not giving up. You're not sacrificing. Quite the contrary. Hashem adds to your knowledge. Hashem adds to your abilities. Continues the Gemara, if you see that the present generation doesn't have the proper attitude and appreciation for Torah, Torah is not dear on the members of this generation, then withhold, gather the Torah within yourself. Don't teach it. Don't offer it to those that don't truly appreciate it. This will degrade the Torah, embarrass the Torah. Shenemar, as it says, Eis lasis Hashem, there's a time to do for Hashem, to protect the honor of Torah, to preserve the kavod. Heiferis eresecha, even if it means annulling the Torah, not spreading the Torah, not teaching the Torah, but you're doing it in order to preserve the kavod of Torah. That is Eis lasis Hashem, and that is the proper way to do it. So in summary, the pasuk teaches us, Eis lasis Hashem, sometimes you need to do for Hashem. It is a time to do for Hashem's sake, even though it is at the expense of heiferis eresecha. It appears as though you're annulling, you're negating the Torah. We have 4 examples. Elio in Har Carmel, when he was makriv the carbon outside the Beis Hamikdash, which appeared to be an annulment of the mitzvah of the Torah. One is not meant to bring a carbon outside the Beis Hamikdash. Nevertheless, he did it for Hashem's sake, to highlight to Klal Yisrael the power of Hashem, the existence of Hashem, and to negate the idol worshippers. So it was Eis lasis Hashem, even though it appeared to be a fair teresecha. The Mishnah teaches us that one is meant to greet his friend with the name of Hashem, and we learn it from this pasuk, because that too is Eis lasis Hashem, is fulfillment of Hashem's will, to greet each other, to seek peace. The Gemara teaches us that in a time, b'sh'as hamefazrim, when there are others that are spreading the word of Hashem, teaching Torah to the masses, you be humble and withhold, retain, kanes, gather it within yourself. Although it appears that you are being mefer the Torah, you're not teaching Torah, but since you're doing it for Hashem, Eis las Hashem, for the sake of Hashem, that is the proper behavior. The Gemara teaches that in a generation, a dur, shein Torah chaviva, the Torah is not appreciated by them. In that case, don't teach them Torah, kanes, withhold it. Even though it appears that you are annulling the word of Hashem, you're not teaching Torah. But it is appropriate, since it is Eis las Hashem, it is being done for Hashem's sake, in order to protect and preserve the honor and glory of Torah. Continues the Gemara, Darash bar kapara. Zalas, when something is cheap, merchandise is cheap, is selling for very little. Kaboitz, you gather. Knei minei, go buy it from him. Eventually you'll be happy, you'll be glad you did so when the price rises, when the value goes up. This also refers to Torah. Even if you're dwelling in a generation environment that doesn't have the true appreciation for Torah, you go ahead, grab it, amass storerooms of Torah knowledge. When it's still cheap, when it's low in value, eventually the value will rise. Everybody will come to appreciate the true value inherent in Torah. What else did Bar Kapara teach? Ba'asar delays Gvar, in a place that there is no Gvar, there's no great Torah scholar who is issuing rulings, herois in Torah. In that case, Taman Havi Gvar, in that place you should assume that position, you be the Pesach and issue rulings of Torah. Amar Ba'ishmamina, it appears from this that in a place that does have a a proper authority, ba'asar d'isgvar, a place that does have a great Torah scholar who is ruling on matters of Torah, in that place, tamana, that place doitavigvar, then you don't interfere, you don't get yourself involved in issuing rulings. Pshita, it's self-evident. Why would he do so? Why would he interfere with the other Rav? One is not meant to do so. One is not even allowed to be moira hara b'fnei rabbi, in the presence of his teacher. Says the Gemara, Leitzricha must be speaking about ela b'sheshneim shavin. When the other person is not greater and not higher in stature than you, they're both of equal stature, they both have the same level of Torah scholarship and knowledge. Even in that case, if there's already somebody there servicing the community, issuing rulings of halacha, you don't take that mantle upon yourself. Don't get yourself involved in issuing rulings on matters of Torah. Darash Bakapara, Ezehu Parsha Ktana. Ezehu Parsha Ktana. Where do we find a small parsha? Shekol Gufei Torah Tluim Ba. That all essences of Torah are dependent on it, are hanging on it, are included in it. What is that? It's a pasuk in Mishlei. B'chol d'rachecha de'eyu. In all your ways you should know Hashem. V'hu yasher chasecha. Hashem in turn will straighten out your pathway, straighten out your archais, your way. Explains Masha, it's referring to a person being aware, being constantly cognizant of Hashem's presence and Hashem's giving us schar v'einish, reward and punishment as a result of our actions. By having that das, that knowledge and awareness, that's a guarantee that will ensure that a person will follow the right path. And if a person makes that effort, Hashem in turn will respond and give him the siyat d'shmai, the heavenly help. V'hu, Yasha will straighten out orchasecha, your ways. The Farshim explained this is also referring to the concept that a person should have the awareness of Hashem and apply it to all matters, even mundane matters, eating, sleeping, etc. B'chol d'rachecha de'eyu, in all your ways, not only in matters of Torah and spirituality, even in matters of physicality and materialism, a person should apply the concept of knowledge of Hashem to channel everything towards Hashem, to bring him closer to Hashem. B'chol d'rachecha de'eyu. And this indeed it forms as a basis, a fundamental foundation to one's service of Hashem, to everything else that follows afterwards. The person has this awareness that the das of Hashem, the connection to Hashem, the relationship with Hashem encompasses all his activities. B'chol d'rachecha. That indeed ensures that everything else will follow. Everything that he does will be in line with the word of Hashem, with the words of Hashem, and bring him closer to Hashem. Amar Rav, afilu dvar avera. The pasuk says, "B'chol d'rachecha de'eyu," in all your ways. It's referring to even a dvar avera. For instance, Eliyahu in Har Carmel, they need to do something which it appeared to be a dvar avera, to bring a korban outside the Beis Hamikdash. Nevertheless, it was done for Hashem's sake, and that's also included in the pasuk. B'chol d'rachecha de'eyu. If a navi needs to do something, and it's for the sake of Hashem, that is also b'chol d'rachecha de'eyu. Dorish bar kapar. La'olam yilamed adam as b'noi. A person should always seek to teach his son a profession, a profession, nekia, clean from dishonesty, vikala, and light, doesn't involve much investment. Mahi, what is this? Amar Avchizda machta to Talmud Yusuf. You should teach him the profession of machta to Talmud Yusuf, the stitches of the furrows. They used to, on these short jackets, they used to have this design of these stitches in rows. So this is a umnas nekia v'kala. Teach him this type of profession, which is free from dishonesty, from gezel, and it's kala, it's light, it's relatively easy. As the Farshim say, since livelihood parnasa comes from Hashem, so it's irrelevant what means a person employs to earn the parnasa. Don't overwork, don't invest too much in your livelihood. Your parnasa will come regardless of how much exertion. Just put in a little effort, malacha umnas nekia v'kala, and you will earn your parnasa from Hashem. Tanya Rabbi Yomer, la'olam al yarba adam areim b'seich beis. A person shouldn't have lots of guests in his home. Shanama ish reim l'sroi'eya. This will it will end up with l'sroi'eya in conflict. Tanya Rabbi Yomer al yimna al yimana adam. A person shouldn't appoint a patropos, a manager, an administrator, b'seich beis in his home. Why? Shel malei lo yimina peitifar. Es Yosef a patropos b'seich beis. If a peitifar would not have appointed Yosef HaTzadik as the administrator in his home, shel malei lo yimina. If it were that Potiphar would have not appointed as Yosef Apotropos to be an administrator, a manager, he would have not have come to that situation of the Michshel with the wife of Potiphar. Tanya Rabbi Yomer, Loma Nismacha Parshas Nazir, the Parshas Soita. Why do we find that the Torah positions the Parsha of Nazir, discussing the individual who accepted upon himself an oath, a vow, to refrain from drinking wine? The Torah positions this discussion right near and close proximity to the Parsha of Soita, the woman who strayed from her husband and is given the Mei Soita to drink, and she suffers shame and embarrassment as a result. So what's the point of joining these two things together? Are they related somewhat? It's coming to teach you, yes, to teach you. If one who witnesses a Soita in this procedure of kilkul, where she is shame and embarrassed, he witnesses the kilkul, the ruin that the Soita incurs. That is a message from heaven. Why did you chance upon this scene? Why did you encounter this situation? Why were you the one that Hashem wanted to see, to be exposed to this event? It's meant to teach you a lesson. Everything is by divine providence. Vashkocha pratis. Hashem is teaching you a lesson. It's coming to tell you that Yazer Atzmai Yayin, one who sees the Soita, he's meant to be Yazer Atzmai, to refrain from drinking wine. Apparently, it is within your nature to have this inclination to lightheadedness, and perhaps to come to Michshel, to sin, through Kalas Roish, which is brought about through drinking wine. That's why Hashem sent you this message. He sent you here at the right time and place to witness the downfall of the Soita, the shame and embarrassment that the Soita is enduring, is living through, and is meant to send you a message, perhaps within your nature. It is within your teva to also have an atiyah, an inclination to this sort of thing, to lightheadedness that brings to sin. Therefore Hashem is telling you, your nature requires that you take upon yourself an added measure of protection, of precaution. You that have this type of nature, you should be Mazer Atzmai Yayin, protect yourself from sin by refraining from drinking wine. Says the Gemara, Omar Chizkiah, Breder of Parnach, Omar V'yechem, Loma Nismacha Parsha Soita, the Parsha Trumas and Maisus. Why did the Parsha place? Why did the Torah place the Parsha of Soita next to the Parsha discussing giving Trumas and Maisus to the Kohen and the Levi? It's coming to teach you a lesson. Lo Merlach. Kol sheyesh like Trumas and Maisus, ve'ein noisen leKohen. If one withholds giving the Trumas and Maisus to the Kohen, soif nitzrach leKohen. Eventually, he's going to need the services of the Kohen in a different context. Al yedei ishtoi, on account of his wife. His wife will be a Soita, and he's going to need the services of the Kohen. He's going to bring his wife to the Kohen. So he's going to have to end up using the service of the Kohen. He's going to end up having to go to the Kohen regardless. Shenemar, as it says, if a person holds the kachim, the Trumas and Maisus by him, he doesn't give it out. It's lo yiyu. He contains it. What does it say right next to it? Ish kesiste ishtai. A person whose wife will stray. Uksiv, and indeed it says v'hevi ishes ishtai. He'll bring his wife to the kohen. So we see that's the punishment as a consequence for withholding the Trumas and Maisus. Not only that, he himself will need to receive Ma'aser Ani. He'll be poor. He'll have an economic downfall as a result. The Kachim, the Ma'aser Ani will belong to him, will go to him because he'll be an Ani. But if he indeed follows through and he gives what he's meant to give properly, Soif means Asher, he'll be wealthy. One who does give to the Kohen, Lo Yiyah, to him will be. What does that mean? Lo Yiyah, Mom and Harbi, he'll have lots of money. Amar Rafuna Rabrecha Mishum Rav Lezer HaKappa. Kol HaMeshatev, Sheish Shemayim B'tzarei, one who partners Hashem into his tsar, into his distress. Rashi explains, one of two things. He says the proper bracha as a result of a misfortune. He says Baruch Ta'ina Emes. So he brings Hashem's name into his experience. He also davens Hashem to relieve him of this difficult period. What is the result? They double his livelihood. Hashem is within you distress. You'll have double money. His livelihood comes flying to him like a bird. It comes with ease. The money will fly to you. One who weakens himself from Divrei Torah, he's marpa atzma Divrei Torah, he negates, he neglects the proper commitment to Torah. He will not have the strength to stand on the day of distress. If you weaken yourself in the day of tzara, your koyach will be diminished. Even if he only weakens himself with regard to one mitzvah, he will suffer this as a result. If you weaken yourself with anything. Omar of Safra. The following story. Ravo will relate the following thing. When Hananya Ben Achi, the son of the brother of Yeshua, the nephew of Yeshua, when he went down the Goda to the diaspora, he would establish years and months. He would establish the leap years, even when he was in Chutz La'aretz, outside Eretz Yisrael. Shigru Achrav Shnei Talmidei Chachamim. So from Eretz Yisrael, they sent after him two Talmidei Chachamim in protest. Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur, uben Bnei Shel Zachar ben Kvuto. So these are the two Talmidei Chachamim that were sent to protest this conduct. One is not meant to establish the years in Chutz La'aretz. Shigru Achav Talmidei Chachamim, Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur, Bnei Shel Zachar ben Kvuto. Kiva Shira Oisam. As soon as Hananiah saw them approaching, he saw those two people, Rabbi Yosef ben Kippur, and the grandson of Zachariah ben Kvuto. Amar lehem, so he told them, Lama Basim, why'd you come here? Amar lehem, they told him, Lama Torah, Banu, we came to learn Torah. If so, Hichraz Aleim, so Hananiah announced on their behalf, Anoshim Alo, these people, G'doyle Adorim, they're the greatest of the generation, Vaveseyim, and their fathers, their ancestors, Shimshu Beis HaMikdash, served in the Beis HaMikdash. As we learned in the Mishnah, Zachariah ben Kvuto Omer, he used to say as follows. They used to keep the Kohen Gadol up the whole night of Yom Kippur. They didn't want to go to sleep. Perhaps he will become tummy. Now, sometimes the Kohanim Gedolim weren't the greatest Torah scholars, especially in the second Beis HaMikdash. So they need to find a technique to keep them awake. So Zachariah ben Kvuto said, many times, Harbi Pa'amim Karisi Lefanav, I would read to the Kohen Gadol to keep him up. I would read from the Sefer Daniel. So we see that he served in the Beis HaMikdash. So this was the grandfather of the individual that came here, the Ben Benai, the grandson of Zachariah ben Kvuto. Continues the Gemara, Hischahu Metame. So Hanani began ruling on matters of Torah. He began by making something Tameh, Vehematarim. And they challenged his ruling. They said, no, it's Torah. Hu Oiser, he said, it's prohibited. Vehematir, and they said, it's permitted. At this point, he was frustrated. Hichraz Aleim, he announced about them, Anoshim Alola Shavhim, they're falsehood, they're false. Shall Toyuhim, they're of emptiness, of hollowness. They're not people that are meant to earn respect. Amr Loi, so they responded. Kvar Banisa, you've already built it up. You've already built up our reputation. Viata Yochalister, you can't demolish it anymore. Kvar Gadarta, you fenced it. You've built it up. Einat Yochalifrat, you can't go ahead and breach it anymore. It's already too late. Amar Lam, so he told them, but why are you doing this? Why are you challenging me? When I say tummy, you say tur. I say it's usr, you say it's mutter. Amar Le, you know why? Because you're arranging the years in the months in Chutz La'aretz. And so one is not meant to do so. It's only meant to be done in Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, we're challenging you. Amar Lam, so he told them, is that the case? We have a precedence to this. So he did it even in Chutz La'aretz. So we see it is appropriate. Amar Lois, they responded, no, you can't prove from Akiva. He was the greatest. He hadn't left anybody with the same degree of prominence behind him in Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, even though he was in Chutz La'aretz, he was meant to establish the years. Amar Lam, so he told him, in my case, the same. Afani, me too. I have not left behind anybody that is as prominent as me in Eretz Yisrael. Amar, so he told him, the goats, the young goats, your students that you left behind when you left, they've grown, they've risen in scholarship. Nasut Yashim, they've become grown and mature goats. Balik Karnaim, they've grown horns. And this is a remez that they have the ability to come and challenge you and even excommunicate you. They have sent us to you. And they've told us. Go tell him in our names. If he listens to us mutav, then good. But if not, he should be excommunicated. So this is different than Akiva and Yosef, because now, indeed, there were in Eretz Yisrael scholars of a high level, of high caliber, and therefore they're meant to establish the years and not you in Chutz La'aretz. And they told us the following message. They instructed us to go tell our brothers in the diaspora, if they listen to us and they cease from this behavior, mutav good, vimlav if not, yalla lahar, should go up to the mountains and worship idols. Achia, who was the greatest of the Goyla, the Rosh of Goyla, he should go build a Mizbeach. Even the Mizbeach Hananya, this Chacham Hananya, he was a Levi. He got Nagan Bekinar, he should play the instrument, the harp. V'yichbu chulam, they should all deny Hashem. V'yomer enam chelim k'Yisrael. We have no part in the God of Israel. So this was the message that they gave over to the people there. Miyad, immediately go, everybody moaned and weeping. But Amar, they said, no, chas v'shalom, God forbid, yesh l'chelek Yisrael. Of course, we have a chelek in Hashem. So this was the end of the story. It says the Gemara, why is it so stringent? Why is it so crucial? The kalkach lama, why is it so heavy that they need to go and take such extreme measures so that they cease this type of behavior of establishing the years in Chutz La'aretz? From Tzion Torah will come out Udvar Hashem, the word Hashem in Yerushalayim. Therefore, this procedure of establishing the years is meant to come out from Yerushalayim, meant to be done in Yerushalayim and not in Chutz La'aretz. It says, we understand how they went ahead and challenged his ruling when he was Mitayr. They said, no, it's Tameh. So this was L'chumra. This was being stringent. That's allowed. But in the reverse case, Elahu Mitameh Mitayr, when he was Mitameh, they went ahead and they were Mitayr. How could they do that? How could they go ahead and challenge his ruling and be more lenient than him? Once he issued his ruling, it's too late. Hechiavi. How did they do it? How was this? V'atani, haven't we learned? Chacham Shetimi, a Chacham who was Mitameh, Ein Chaver Rashi Latar. His colleague is not allowed to go ahead and overturn it and be matar. Or if he is asar, if he prohibited something, and chavei rashi lahater, his colleague can't go be matar any longer. So why were they allowed to do that? Says the Gemara, this was a special circumstance. Ordinarily, it's not acceptable. One can't do that. This was different. This was unique. They did it because kasavi, they figured ki heichi. We must do so. We must take extreme measures. Ki heichi deloi nigru abasrei, so that the public doesn't follow him. And therefore they need to challenge him and negate him in any way possible. When our masters went into the Kerem in Yavna, in the town of Yavna, there was a Kerem where this was a mashal that the scholars would sit in rows like the rows of a vineyard. So when they entered the Kerem of Yavna, there was a group, Hoyisham, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Nechemia, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shobei Saglili, and they all went ahead and spoke. They all began their talk in reference to the honor and appreciation for the host that hosted the Talmid Chacham. And they said the drasha. However, Rabbi Yehuda took a different route. Rabbi Yehuda began speaking with regard to the Agudath of Torah. Rabbi Yehuda, and he was the Rosh HaMadab Chamokim. He was the head speaker, the one that spoke first. The Gemara Shabbos tells us because the government, they appointed him as the Rosh HaMadabrim, since when there was a group of people speaking unfavorably regarding the regime, he was the one who spoke favorably, and therefore they awarded him this honor of being the Rosh HaMadabrim, so he was the first one to speak. So he began speaking B'chvoi Torah, describing the honor of Torah. V'darshani says as follows. It says in the pasuk after the Egel, Moshe Rabbeinu took his tent, which contained also the Aron, with the Luchos, and he took it outside the encampment, outside the Machne. Out of displeasure for the Egel, for the Chet, for the sin of Klal Yisrael, Moshe Yikach HaSo'el, he took the tent, he would take the tent, but not to him, he would plant it outside the Machne, and inside there was the Aron. This wasn't the Aron which was put in the Mishkan, this is another Aron which contained the Luchos. So he would take the oil with the Aron, and the pasuk says that when one sought Hashem, Hashem, anybody that would seek Hashem, go out to that oil moed, to Moshe Rabbeinu's oil, which was outside the Machne. So we see that Torah refers to the person who travels out there as a mevakesh Hashem in a very respectable and endearing, if you say, term. Mevakesh Hashem. He's searching. He's yearning for Hashem. Says the Gemara, we have a kavachomer. Uma Aron Hashem. If we find that regarding the Aron Hashem, which was at most 12 mil in the distance, meaning the most that one needed to walk was 12 mil, from all the way on the other side, the far side of the Machne, which was 12 mil wide. The furthest one needed to walk to get to Moshe Rabbeinu was 12 mil. Still, how does the Torah refer to this person? The Torah refers to him in a very special way of a Mavakesh Hashem. If so, regarding a small trip, he's already called a Mavakesh Hashem. Certainly, Talmid Chachamim, Shochem Me'ir Le'ir, that travel from city to city for Torah, from country to country, from state to state, to learn Torah. Certainly in their case, certainly there to be considered Mevakshi Hashem, one who seek Hashem, on account of their sacrifice, their troubling themselves to travel to learn Torah, to go to yeshiva to learn Torah. So Rabbi Yehuda, by doing so, by expounding on elaborating on the kavod of the learned Torah, he was meant to endear, to elaborate, and to greaten the kavod, the impression amongst the town folks, the people in the Avneh, so that they have the proper regard, the proper kavod, the proper endearment to the ones, the Torah scholars that are coming to Meiser Nefesh and traveling to seek the word of Hashem, and they should see it as a privilege that was granted to them to provide and support and give livelihood for the Torah scholars. So that was the purpose in Rabbi Yehuda expounding on the kavod of Torah and the learned Torah. Continues the Gemara, V'dibra Hashem al Moshe panim al panim. So Hashem spoke to Moshe face to face. What does this mean? Rav Yitzchak, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe, Moshe, ani v'ata nazbir panim b'halacha. We will be pleasant to each other with a pleasant facial demeanor when we learn together b'halacha. So just as I display a pleasant demeanor to you when I teach you Torah, you too have a pleasant demeanor to me. It should appear as though you're enjoying the experience. You seek to absorb the words of Torah, and this indeed enables you, empowers you to properly comprehend and observe the words of Torah. If you approach learning Torah with a hasbaras panim, with a pleasant demeanor, with appreciation, and with a show of pleasantness and enjoyment. Ikad Amri, some say this was the point of the pasuk. Kach Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe, Kishem shani yizbarach panim, just as I have expressed to you a pleasant demeanor, Kach ato hasber panim Yisrael, you express a pleasant demeanor to Klal Yisrael. V'achzer ha'olam kaimei, go return your tent to its place within the Machne Yisrael. V'shav al Machne, go back to the Machne, and the pasuk concludes with a description of Yeshua, who was a servant of Moshe, wouldn't leave the tent. So the pasuk is coming to teach you the following: Amar Avo Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe, Achshav, if you stay outside the Machne, Yoimru Klal Yisrael will say, Arav Bekas, the Master Hashem is Bekas, is angry at us. But Talmud Bekas, and the student Moshe Rabbeinu is also angry at us. Yisrael Mati Aleim, what will be with us? Who is going to take care of us? Who is going to teach us? If so, if you go return the oil to its place, fine. then you will remain the leader. If not, Yeshua ben Nun Talmidcha. Yeshua ben Nun, your student, Mishar Sachtach, will take over in your place and will lead Klal Yisrael. So Hashem was telling him to go back to the Machna. Amar Rav, Afal became, even though Moshe Rabbeinu complied and returned his tent to the Machna, nevertheless, the word of Hashem is everlasting. The word of Hashem describing Yeshua, assuming the mantle of leadership of Klal Yisrael, those words that never went to naught. Eventually he became the leader of Klal Yisrael. Rav Yehuda also continued expounding on the honor of Torah. V'darash, and he said as follows. The pasuk says, Haskes u'shma Yisrael. Hearken, pay attention, and listen, Klal Yisrael. Hayom hazeh, today, today you've accepted the Torah, which makes you into a nation. Klal Yisrael's nationhood was galvanized, is based on acceptance of the Torah. The nationhood was formed through the acceptance of Torah. We were bound by the Torah. Says the Gemara, what do you mean today you became the nation? Today you accepted the Torah? This day was when? It was at the end of 40 years. Torah was received many years earlier. Ella is coming to teach us. Torah is precious and dear to its learners. Every single day. Every day a person who learns Torah, enjoys Torah, who Torah is dear to him, approaches Torah as if it is being given to him today anew. Torah is a live shiur. Hashem is teaching us a live shiur every day. It is a new acceptance of Torah. That is the meaning of Hayom Hazeh Yisrael. Today, every single day, one is meant to approach Torah with the attitude, it's fresh, it's new, it's a lifeline from Hashem. Omar of Tanchem Beida of Chia Ishkvar Akoy. He was a person lived in Akoy, came from Akoy. Teda, I'll prove this concept to you. Shari Adam Kari Krishma Shachas V'Arvis. Even though a person recites Krishma every morning and evening, one night he neglects to read Krishma. What is the result? It appears to him, he relates to this experience as though he has never read Krishma. It is so troubling to him that he missed the opportunity, because in Krishma is contained the reference of this concept. It says, so when one reads Krishma, he experiences this concept of the Torah being handed to him today. So therefore, if one misses Krishma even one evening, he missed this experience, he missed this opportunity. It's as though he's never read Krishma. He missed the opportunity of receiving the Krishma on that day, of receiving the Torah on that day. Continues the Gemara. The pasuk says, Haskes u'shma Yisrael. The Gemara has three interpretations of the word Haskes. Firstly, Asu kites kites. Haskes is a combined combination of two words. Haskes. Has is as, make, do. Kat, make groups. Fashion groups of Iska Torah. And immerse yourself in Torah with groups. Why? Torah isn't truly absorbed and niknes and retained and acquired only with a chabura, by learning with a group where there's debate and discussion that enables one to properly understand the clarity of Torah and to absorb it within him. A sword on those badim who became foolish is coming to teach us cherev, a sword, on the enemies of Talmid Chacham. It's a euphemism for Talmid Chacham. Why a sword? They sit separately, individually, bad bevad, and then they turn in that manner. So therefore, a sword on them is not meant to be done in this way. Not only that, they become metapshin, they become foolish. Why? Because they err in their Torah, they're learning on their own, they don't have the clarity, the proper clarity to understand Torah. How do we see that they become metapshim ksivach v'nayalu? The pasuk here makes reference to the term v'nayalu ksivas mashanayalu. We became foolish. So we see that this also happens in this circumstance. Not only that, they err and they sin, because when they make a mistake in their learning, this can bring them to make errors and mistake in their conduct. So you see that Tipshus brings to chet. We have another source, they fool the the ministers of Tzayan, of Egypt, and it brought them to sin. Another interpretation of Haskes is Shema Yisrael. Kitatu atzmcha divrei Torah, or katatu atzmcha divrei Torah. You should grind yourself for the sake of Torah. One is meant to sacrifice conveniences and pleasures, to invest his very essence in learning Torah, and that's the only way to truly acquire Torah. How do we know that divrei Torah is only acquired, only absorbed, it only endures? One who dies, who kills himself for the sake of Torah, means he sacrifices himself. He's meiser nefesh. He gives up on conveniences and pleasures in order to acquire Torah, because very too often worldly material pleasures are a contradiction, oppose the pleasure, the true sweetness, the spiritual bliss of the Torah learning experience. One needs to give up from this world in order to truly appreciate and to experience the joy and absolute sweetness of Torah. Shanemar Zois HaTorah. This is the Torah. Abadam Kiyamas Boil, one who dies in the tent. So it's a remiss to one who sacrificed meiser nefesh himself in the tent of Torah to learn Torah. Another explanation of Haskes, another interpretation. Haskes is Shema Yisrael. Has means be quiet. And afterwards, analyze and delve into Torah. Meaning, first, listen, acquire Torah knowledge, the facts of Torah, Mishnayos, Gemara. First, attain the vast knowledge of Torah and review it. Be fluent in the words of Torah, and afterwards, now you're in the position to go ahead and analyze and delve into the depths of Torah, ask and answer. Now that you have the knowledge, now you have the ability to delve into it and to gain a deeper perspective in Torah. First learn and then analyze. Explains the Gemara. With who? Amongst who do you find the chema, the butter of Torah? Who is Zeicha? Who merits to have the clarity to rule the matters of Torah? It is only b'misha meki cholav shiyonak mizdeimai. It is only one who spits out the milk that he nursed from his mother. Shiyonak mizdeimai. He is a person who is Zeicha to chema of Torah, to a high level of Torah scholarship. B'misha meki cholav shiyonak mizdeimai oleh, who spits it out for the sake of Torah. So that's the meaning of kimitz cholav yoytzi. He will give out, expel the cholav that he nursed, that he sucked, that he got from his mother, and he will be zeicha to chema, to the butter of Torah. Umitz af yoytzidam, one who extracts af, anger, he will be yoytzidam, who will produce dam. Explains the Gemara called Talmud Shekoyos of Rabbi. This is referring to a student whose teacher was angry at him. One time, v'shoisik, he was koyel parishayna. One time, v'shoisik, and he endured. He kept quiet. He was silent. He kept his silence in the face of his Rebbe's anger. What is he zeicha? He's zeicha lahavchem ben tam elam tar. He's zeicha to differentiate, to distinguish between different types of dam nida. There's some that are tar, some that are tamei. He'll gain a high level of Torah scholarship as a result of remaining silent in the face of his Rebbe's anger. So that's the pshat of mitzaf yotzidam. When he extracts anger and he remains silent, this will result in dam. So the first part of the pasuk says, kimitz chalav, one extracts milk, and then his yotzi, then expels that. He gives up on his childhood pleasures and conveniences, and now immerses himself completely in Torah. He'll be zeich to the chem of Torah. A Talmud who endures the anger of his Rebbe, he will be zeich to differentiate between the various types of dam of nida. Finally, says the pasuk, umitz apayim, one who extracts, sucks out apayim, meaning more than one anger. Yotzi riv, he will be zeicha to riv. Explains the Gemara. Kol tam tchav moshe koyes of Rabbi. Pam rishon ushniya. He endures a double anger of his Rebbe ubeshoisik, and he remains silent. Zeicha, he zeicha lahavchin, to distinguish between dinim mamas, dinim fash, between dinim that involve monetary cases, dinim fashes, to dinim that involve capital punishment. So he'll be zeicha to a high degree of Torah scholarship, since dini mamanis are a higher stature are more deeper than dinei nefashos, and therefore he will be zeicha to a higher level of Torah scholarship, which is dinei mamnis. As we learned this nan of Shmuel Eimer, if one looks to become wise in Torah, yasik dinei mamnis, he should involve himself in monetary halachas. There's no topic in Torah that is greater than that. It is a flowing spring. So a person who endures one anger from his Rebbe is zeicha to something. But if he endures a double anger, he's zeicha to a higher degree of scholarship, to be zeicha to have clarity in dinei mamidis. Mashal points out that this is very appropriate for dinei mamidis, which involves adversaries, people coming to argue things out, and it involves a great deal of patience on account of the dayan of the judge. And therefore, a person who displays patience, savlanis, when his Rebbe gets angry at him, he indeed is zeicha. He is suitable and enabled to deal with dinei mamidis. So, in conclusion, Rabbi Yehuda was derish b'chvoid haTorah. He said that a person who travels, who goes and troubles himself to travel for the sake of Torah, is called a Mavakish Hashem. Rabbi Yehuda told us that Torah is precious. It is as though it was given to us today. A person who learns Torah relates to Torah as if it's fresh. It's being given to him, transmitted live from Hashem today, on this day. We have three explanations for the word haskes. It either means go make groups, or kata to atzmach divrei Torah, grind yourself for account of Torah learning, or has, remain silent. First learn, amass Torah knowledge, and then afterwards achakach kaseis, grind through it and analyze it. Continues the Gemara. Pastor Rav Nechemya. So Rav Nechemya was another member of this group, and he began as follows. He began to discuss the chvoid hasan, appreciation, words of appreciation for the host who hosted the Torah scholars. V'darash, and said as follows: My dechsiv, v'yoyim Shaul Akeni. Shaul turned to the Keni, who grandchildren of Yisrael. L'chu suru du m'tech Amaleki. Go away from the Amalekim. Penai sifcha imay, because perhaps I will go and annihilate you with them, with Amalek. I don't want you to share their fate. Go separate yourself from them. Why? Because you did kindness with Klal Yisrael. When did that happen? In the Midbar, when Yisrael came and he visited Klal Yisrael, he made a feast, a Suda. He invited from the Yidden. So he made a Suda for the Yidden, and therefore, as a result of that, I want to display kindness to you and spare you. Says the Gemara, why did Yisrael bring Moshe close to him? He did it for the sake of his own honor, to pride himself with Moshe being close to him. And what did he get as a result? Kach. He got this reward that his grandchildren will spare death. If so, if we find that this is the reward afforded to one who hosts Moshe Rabbeinu for his own interests, certainly Hamarech Talmid Chacham B'Sech the one who hosts a Talmid Chacham within his home, gives him to eat to mashkeyu, gives him to drink and benefits him from his assets, certainly he will earn a great reward. Pastor Rav Yosef began extolling the virtues of the host, of the Talmid Chacham V'Darsh, and he says, Lo yisasav adoimi ki achichu, don't reject the adoimi, because he's your brother. Lo yisasav mitzri, don't reject the mitzri kigeri sebarse, because you are a sojourner in his land, you lived in his land. The pasuk is referring to the third generation adoimi mitzri. They may enter and intermarry in Klal Yisrael, so we're not meant to reject them. Says the Gemara, we can learn al kavachayim from here. Oma mitzrim shalekir Yisrael terech atzma. Why did the mitzrim bring Klal Yisrael close to them? It was for their own sake, for their own pleasure. Shanamar, as it says, Pari told Yosef, if you know, amongst your brothers are men of power, of strength, V'samtam Sari Mikna Shali, go appoint them as Sari Mikna. They should be in charge of my herd. So he did it for his own sake. If so, we find that a person that brings one close for his own benefit, for his own pleasure, what does he get as a result? Kach. This results in him getting a reward that his grandchildren are not rejected from entering Klal Yisrael. If so, certainly Hamareach Talmid Chacham is the one who honors, who hosts the Talmid Chacham within his home. Certainly, that he will earn a great reward and a great schar as a result of him hosting and providing for a Talmud Chacham.